Did you know that by not using the correct amount of liters, you actually find it more difficult to paddle? This number plays a massive role in determining how balanced you feel on your paddleboard. Get it wrong, you're spending more time in the water versus on your board paddling. So liters refers to overall volume of a paddleboard and how buoyant it will be. The higher the number, the more buoyant your paddleboard will be. The lower the number, the less buoyant it will be. This is very important, especially for new paddleboarders, as if you use a board with too low a volume, you actually find it harder to balance on the paddleboard as it sinks below your feet. To avoid this, you simply want to use a paddleboard with a higher number of liters. This will ensure the paddleboard floats more on top of the water, providing you with more balance. But this can be a little bit confusing, as some boards, like race boards, will have a higher number of liters, but that doesn't necessarily make them more stable than other all-around paddle boards. You also need to consider how wide the paddleboard is as well, and where they're focusing on putting the amount of liters or the amount of volume on the paddleboard. For a race board, for example, they're much longer, so they're able to spread out the amount of liters through a longer distance, allowing the board still to be buoyant, but also more narrow, causing the board to be fast, but not very stable side to side. On an all-around paddleboard, you're dealing with a paddleboard that is shorter and much wider. So on those paddleboards, the liters and volume is focused more in the center part of the paddleboard, allowing it to feel more stable side to side. So just because a paddleboard has a higher number of liters does not necessarily make it a more stable paddleboard, as you also need to consider the size and shape of the board as well. So what is the exact number that you should be looking for then on a paddleboard, as it will depend on your body weight? For beginners, I recommend taking your weight in kilos plus 100. Whatever this number equals, use a board that has at least this amount of volume to it or more. Pair this number up with a paddleboard that's at least 32 inches wide, and you have a paddleboard that's much more stable for you to use. So be sure to leave a comment down below with any other questions or thoughts you may have, and I'll catch you next video.